You're building a story. You're building a way to connect to the actual end user. And with this person who's a gamer, for example, they know that this product now is for them. It's in a price point that works for them. And they know the unique benefits. So when they go back on Amazon, they're not typing in the keyword, say like pre-workout, for example. They're typing in the brand name to go find that product again. And that's where it leads to long-term LTV and long-term conversion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super stoked to be here today. We're going to be talking about some fun aspects around content and profit, and I'm telling you, content can absolutely drive profit. Bringing today a good friend of mine, one of our partners here at Trellis as well, the head of growth, the king himself, the GOAT himself, Trevon Heath from the Sequence Commerce team. Trevon, how you doing, man?
It's good. That was a lot. I don't know if I wouldn't call myself a king, but I'm really happy to be here with one of my close friends. We've done a lot of great things together, so I'm happy to share a lot of that with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I call you the king because I have seen all of the content that your team puts out, and I don't think I've ever seen better content. And I say like, and better is actually the interesting word there, right? Where it's not just about how it looks, it's about what does it actually drive for you. And I know you guys always focus on that. I know your whole team focuses on that. That how is our content actually driving sales? Trevon, talk to me. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about a bit about your background. And tell me a bit more about Sequence.
Okay. So again, my name is Trevon. I'm the head of growth here at Sequence. So I've been in the Amazon space for closer to 6 to 7 years now, not to age myself a little bit, but I've worked across a few agencies, and the reason why I'm here with Sequence is that we're focused on the full scope, the entire sequence of getting your product to Amazon all the way to making a purchase through the end user. We're dedicated to creating the best content, down to a science, to advertising your product, and also finding out the best fulfillment strategy in order to get product in and out without adding additional fees and incurring in your profit, which we're going to dive a bit deeper into now.
That's exactly it. So that, like, without a doubt, I think that the interesting part towards all of this is that whenever we look at content, we're often just looking at, does it pass that gut check? Does my brand look good? And I think those times are done. You and I have talked about this extensively, but does my brand look good is not a reasonable metric or way to evaluate good content anymore. It's
1,000%.
What is it now?
It's we have, not to give the secret sauce, but we have every image serves a select purpose in order to draw your user to increase your conversion. Like typically, most people, they have their brand, especially big box stores. They have their brand and their actual image sets across the board as in a standardized way. Although it's very easy and there's applications that help with that. The Amazon user is very specific. They have a more agnostic way of looking at and making purchases. So you need to make your images in a specific and select way in order to get that conversion, because you are competing against the ocean compared to other places.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad you say that, and I think that sets us up really nicely for what we're talking about here as well. But we talk about this all the time. This is something that we bring up on our presentations all the time as well. That at the end of the day, where we lie today and the market that we play in, and all marketplaces for that matter, but we'll talk about Amazon more specifically, 50 cents of every dollar that you're making goes towards Amazon. And Trevon, we talk about this. Your brands come to you and talk to you about this.
Yeah, all the time. Like in my career, I've seen 500 plus accounts. The general thing that everyone wants to get to, why they use our services, why they use Trellis, is how do I maximize my own profit, whether that's for their own lifestyle, for their overall business. Right now with Amazon, there's more people entering the marketplace than they were, say, in 2016. There's more fees that are coming in, especially on the fulfillment side, that made things extremely difficult. And Amazon has sort of shifted from a place where you're looking to maximize your volume and generate sales in that way to more of a volume infrastructure comparatively to where it was like in 2018, like it shows on this slide.
Yeah, I know exactly right. Like this is a slide that people have seen often, time and time and again, from every single one of our presentations, every single thing we talk about, because it is the pain point. Like
Mhm.
your brands are talking to you about it. It is the pain point. Profits going down, and there's no more of this. We can drive revenue and everything will be fine,
Yeah.
right? It's that's not the case anymore. It's margins are being impacted time and time and again. There's more competitors, to your point. That shelf, right? Like that vast space of Amazon is getting more and more crowded with people who are selling similar products or competing products, let's call them as well. It's not going away, and it's only going to be there for the future. And as consumers often like something like that as well, right? Where they can actually see diversity and see those pieces and will shop more, but that in turn increases how long it takes for a customer to actually convert as well, right? Like
Yep.
it's going to take them more and more time. And so you've seen any of our presentations before, you know this to be true. This is the pain point for brands today. Growing profitably is extremely challenging. If I were to ask you, Trayvon, across the entire Sequence commerce side, how many brands is that the goal for that we want to grow profitably?
Every single one. I think the reason why people come to Sequence is just essentially 5, 6 years ago, you push all revenue, margin will follow. It's now come to a point where you need an actual skill set in order to optimize your conversion and your profit and get what you want at the end of the tunnel. It's
Yeah.
no longer a space where you can have anybody run it. It's a real skill set that people are trained to do so.
Yeah.
And with all the changes now, you need to be updated and have someone on your side that's doing so.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Like, what can we do about it? I think the biggest thing to start with is understanding what drives revenue, right? And again, if you've been here before, if I ask you this question, everybody should know the answer to it. Trevon knows the answer to it. I know he believes this to be true and knows that this is exactly what it is. But
Yep.
it's the four P's, right? You've seen this before. You've seen it. You've seen it in the past. You'll see it again. You'll see it in the future. But it's the four P's, and Trevon talking about how you guys leverage the four P's for your brands and why this is what you believe to be true.
Yeah. So with every member on our team, we're looking at every account that we have, every client from a holistic perspective. We're optimizing their product content to ensure that they are having the best images and the best callouts in order to maximize the conversion. We're looking at the marketplace and identifying what's the correct pricing for us to be competitive and to yield as much margin as possible.
Yeah,
When are certain times within the year where we can offer promotions? There may be a slower time in terms of like the seasonal trend, or times where we know that our competitors may be out of stock or in a
yeah,
worse position where we can maximize that. And then from the advertising perspective, how can we implement the correct keywords, the correct strategy to, one, drive revenue, and two, optimize the conversion from those keywords and gain market share?
yeah. And like it's all four of these things matter, right? And it's the combination of all four that actually make things work. If you have a poor conversion rate or your content isn't very good, doesn't matter how much you discount your product, doesn't matter what your price is, doesn't matter how much of your advertising budget is. It you need to improve it. You need to optimize for one. You need to optimize that content, and all four of these things working together is how you get profit, right? And we know this. We've talked about this before, and coming back to this as well is that. So then, if we know that these are the four P's, how do we know that our efforts that we take in each of these individual areas are profitable? And when Trevon and I were discussing this, a lot of it was coming back to exactly something that we talked about before as well. But it's the shopper journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is kind of a simplified view of what the shopper journey should look like, right? And I know Trayvon, I know you like to look at some more mid steps within here as well.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, on the surface level, your awareness that it comes from your hero image videos, things like that will lead through to get click through rate. Your consideration is when people are looking at the reviews, the call outs from we like to call them impact images, and that offers consideration for when the end user actually wants to make a purchase. And then conversion that deals with pricing, any use UGC. The reviews also help with conversion as well. And then I think an important factor that people don't realize, whether they're advertising, whether they're selling on Amazon, is loyalty. If you convert someone one time, especially if you have a consumable, that's going to lead to additional purchases. That leads them to joining your subscribe and save. The concept of looking at every single end user as just a one-time purchase forever doesn't really make sense. You need to be thinking of the long-term game and looking at LTV and how you convert that one purchase for your consumable into several purchases and a customer for life, because that's where you get those organic sales, and organic sales is really where you want to be overall long term.
Yeah, and like that, like everything you said there, like they're all various aspects, right? Whether are we driving from the top for advertising, or we look at putting those decorations through coupons,
Mm-hmm.
or even optimizing your price, even the content elements that you mentioned there. That's how you get profit, right? Pulling those four different levers at each stage of the funnel, and drive people down that path, right? And so when we visualize that, I know you love this visual as well, because it tells that story when you're talking to your brands too. That we can't just do advertising, we can't just do X. It needs to be, how does this relate to the entire funnel?
Yeah, the landscape has changed considerably. When I first started my career, advertising was the end all be all. Most of the cost that you had was fairly fixed, and you were competing to get to the top of the page with significantly less customers, less actual sellers. Now someone is reselling the same item as you. They're able to get it sometimes at a cheaper price, whether they're overseas or in other places, and they've slowly taken away market share. I've seen this across most of my clients, and the one key way to differentiate yourself from those people is through your content. They are able to encapsulate the branding that you have, the brand story that you have, and if you're able to put that in within your listing, within Amazon just in general,
Yeah.
that's something that someone cannot just replicate and throw onto their storefront. It changes the landscape. It differentiates you from every single one.
That's an interesting piece. I do think that in the last couple of years, we've seen what I like to call the rise of the Scrabble sellers, right? Where it's just a combination of words that now I have brand registry on, a combination of letters, sorry, that the brand registry on. And it would actually be pretty fun to play a Scrabble game with all the brands that exist on Amazon there. But the Scrabble sellers are a real thing,
Yeah.
right? And there's more competitors, more pieces. But when we look at this funnel and we look at the shopper journey throughout it, and you mentioned a lot of the content points as well, like I think that people don't really believe that content can actually drive more profit,
Hmm.
um, because it's I'm just going to set up my images and I'm going to let it go. But that's it can, right?
Yeah. Um, I think one way of looking at things is obviously your click through rate. The more amount of people that like click through on your actual listing leads to more actual sales, and then your actual conversion, because the level of the conversion that you have can significantly change the amount of profit that you're bringing in, how much advertising dollars that you actually can put out in between. I think it's really hard for people to conceptualize this changing my image is going to lead to like 3x in ways that advertising does. But if you look at, and we've discussed this, things like profit per session, if you're able to track, and we can, how much money you're getting anytime someone clicks, it allows you to understand, are we going in the right direction? Am I getting more profit with each view that I'm seeing? And if you are getting that way, let's put more advertising dollars towards it, because we know that it's going to lead to like more fruitful things.
Yeah, exactly. And when we look at that funnel, and when we look and kind of pull out from that 4P funnel just the content aspects of that, what does that translate into the tactical pieces? This is really the elements here that each funnel stage are have the most impact on, right? Whether that
Mhm.
hero image, right? People aren't even going to click your product if your hero image, on your listing on the shelf amongst all of them don't stand out, don't have additional values that that the end user, the consumer sees there as well, all the way down to into UGC and the loyalty phase there, right? We see our click through rate, our conversion rate, our profit. And one of the things I don't put at the bottom here, but you mentioned it yourself, is LTV,
Mhm.
right? Lifetime value, right? Like that's the sole goal that we have, especially when you're looking at consumables or durables, consumables, where it's like let's actually get to a point where we can increase the repeat purchases. Let's get people there. And content has a big role to play in all of that.
Yep. Yeah. It aids a lot. I think just to harp on the loyalty part as well, like if I think we've all seen like the power that TikTok and TikTok Shop has had on a lot of businesses. UGC, like underneath, and we're gonna get to this further in this presentation. If you're able to get people that have tried your product, especially for consumable, applied it on their skin, and they provide a positive review, like within an actual video itself, it empowers you in a way that your description and your listing, which is obviously fine, but getting a physical human to endorse your product comes off more authentic, helps with your actual conversion, and is something such a low hanging fruit that no one's really doing right now that I think more brands need to get onto.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that like seeing this starts to make a lot more sense, right? That content can actually drive profit. UGC is a prime example of that in terms of getting people to see those videos, see those testimonials, but then also being able to make the people that are your advocates showcasing the product, and getting other people to become the advocates as well. And to your point, we'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. But I think a tangible example might help. And you and I put together an example towards this too, of a product to see how we can impact or how content impacts that. And we know aspects towards this as well. But talk to us about this example, Trevon.
Yeah.
Talk to me about.
Yeah. So this is an example that I use like pretty universally across many clients. If you're selling something at $100, we're gonna assume that the cost of goods is the same across both examples I'm going to show in a second, and our cost per click is $1. The conversion when you're advertising will significantly change depending on whether you're at Amazon's ideal conversion of that 10% or below. So if you're at a 10% conversion, for example, that's by advertising and boosting up the more eyes and more revenue that you can get, you're still profiting at a 30% margin, which is still significant. We would take that every single day and push more advertising dollars towards that. But if you're at a 5%, that's when things get tricky. You're at a 20% margin. What if you have a month where you get hit with the small inventory fees that trickles down your margin even more? If there's something that falls off a truck, there's things that could turn that 20% into 5%, and that's where you are more gun shy on advertising, more gun shy on listing more products on Amazon, just because you can't see the end of the tunnel. But you can if you're able to actually figure out what does the consumer want to see, and how can I ensure that every time we get a click or a session that leads to actual profit, and that can be done through content.
Yeah. And that's a prime example, right? So pretty much if I hear you correctly, you're telling me that content has a direct impact to conversion rate, which we saw in that funnel, and we saw the aspects there that drive towards that. But if I can get essentially more efficiency, and efficiency, when I use that word, is sufficiently profit, and give yourself that buffer should you get any ancillary fees, should other things pop up and creep up, because we know that that happens all the time, and you're just unavoidable, right? You can be as prepared as you want to all the aspects. Something will pop up that will cost you money, but fundamentally, if you can control and get more efficiency and more profit from your listings, then you have that buffer, you have that wiggle room, and in turn, and if you don't need it, at least it's in your pocket, right? But this example is always so relevant and hits home for me every single time, because with the same eyeballs, if I can get more people, and essentially what you're telling me is that convert more people, and that's going to happen through content, right? And so in turn, our conversion rate is impacted by content. It's significantly.
Yeah, it is. I think what most people don't see, and when you're advertising, the sole purpose of advertising is for awareness. We can bring people to your listing to see the listing, but whether they decide to convert is on the actual intangibles that you have within your listing, the call outs that you have, the reviews that you have. Just like in the funnel that we showed there, that can't be changed just by throwing money at there's a skill set and actual way of going about it that we will get into in a sec.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into it, right? What are the things that we need to look at when we're looking at that listing? We're looking at a PDP. Talk to me. How do we optimize our product listings?
So I think the most important thing is just the quality of images that you have. Typically, like what you see on Amazon right now is that most people use the simple white backdrop image. They don't have typical callouts through your image 2 to 7 that give you essential identifiers of certain health qualifications, certain best practices with the product itself, especially a product like this, which you're going to apply on your actual skin. You need it to show quick reasonings why it's going to be effective, why it's useful, and that will lead to actual conversion. I think maximizing also like with your A plus content as well is a quick way to one show your entire product line and what that offers as well. That will lead to more conversion. Also, it will show it gives you an opportunity to cover up more space as well from previous people who are offering suggestions and product targeting as well. And another way to show off the unique quality points of each particular product and allows you to generate sales in a way that you can be more cost effective in the way that you're advertising because you know that your conversion is a bit higher just because you've gone through the steps and you've gone through everything that Amazon will take off and will help the actual algorithm push you up higher on your page.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, right? Like I think this image here I love entirely to allow people to resonate, right? To be like, I am the athlete or I am the gamer. Who am I coming into this and saying this is for you, right? As and being able to see that will and comparing against your competitors who may not have that this is for the gamer or this is for the student or for the athlete, people will be skeptical, right? That this one is made for me and who I am and who I identify as. Whereas on the other one, it's like, well, it doesn't really say it, and I have to assume that, right? And I think those are the kind of points, and that's why I love this one. That when I have to assume, and when you make the buyer assume that this is what's going to solve their value or their pain points, they start questioning the decision and will go with someone, even if it's a little bit more expensive,
Yeah.
that is solving for that, right? That is saying that this is for you and your pain point. This is the value that you will get out of this, and what you can expect from it. And Trevon, from your experience, when you look at that, when you make kind of these content changes for your brands and for your clients, what kind of conversion rate impact do you see?
So typically, like if, and I do want to clarify the content changes you're making. These are things that you're doing gradually over a long period of time. You're not making one massive change and leaving it forever, but
Yeah,
you can see conversion increases by 2 or 3% if you are adding in the correct callouts, certain health qualifications, or any like
yeah,
UGC as like testimonial. That 2 to 3%, well, like in layman's term doesn't sound significant. It could be
yeah,
thousands of dollars just simply by going through all the regimented things that a reseller wouldn't do. That reseller, they're listing 1,000 products, they're hopping on other people's listings, or they're just listing it themselves, and all they have is images from the manufacturer. You're building a story, you're building a way to connect to the actual end user. And with this person who's a gamer, for example, they know that this product now is for them. It's in a price point that works for them, and they know the unique benefits. So when they go back on Amazon, they're not typing in the keyword, say the pre workout, for example. They're typing in the brand name to go find that product again, and that's where it leads to long term LTV and long term conversion.
that's the interesting part, right? Like when you start converting people from that broad, general, top of the funnel keyword to being like, I only want to see what this brand products have to offer, and getting bought into the brand and only buying your products or exclusively buying your products. And there's terms in the loyalty world like lift, shift, retention, right? Getting
Mhm.
them onto ancillary products within your brand, and keeping them within there as well. And so that's an interesting approach and an interesting way to even conceptualize it, right? That broad keyword to branded keyword,
Yeah,
and getting people into that journey. I actually really like that. We're going to do another one entirely on that topic there.
but yeah, it's the gateway for anyone. If the overall
Yeah,
goal is to have an actual brand, whether that's on Amazon or on other platforms, you don't want to
yeah.
be beholden to any one platform. You want to build the actual story to connect with your user.
Yeah, and leverage that your enhanced branded content, your A+ content, the images in your listing, and even the text to be able to do that. And so then you mentioned reviews earlier. Tell me more about that.
So reviews are one of the most significant ways people try to understand if the product is good or not, just because they know it's coming from a genuine place. You can drive reviews, the testimonials is one thing I'm going to keep preaching in general. If you're able to get video testimonial of your actual product, of people enjoying it, that will lead to more conversion, and more conversions are going to lead to people leaving reviews, because if people are happy with what you actually are doing, you're going to get that review velocity in general. And most
Yeah,
people, what the scary thing about a lot of clients that we take on, they don't even know that with a click of a button, for every sale that they get, they can ask for a review. They aren't even doing the small little steps to
yeah,
generate more reviews. And even if someone doesn't click on the actual reviews themselves, they see that number. If you have
yeah,
1,000 reviews at a 4.5 stars, that's the confirmation that they need before they even look into any of the images, any of the product detail page in general.
yeah.
It just provides a stamp on your product and helps you convert much quicker than in any other way, I would say.
And I think that's it, right? Like it's reviews don't have to be passive. You don't have to be and just hope that your customers will leave reviews and hopefully that pans out. It can entirely be a strategy that you undertake and putting effort behind it as well, right? To your point, whenever someone buys a product, you can ask them for a review. Um, I'd be curious to know how many people actually do that right now. If anyone wants to comment in here, but I'm watching the comments at the same time. But I know that that's something that is just often thought of as like, it's okay, right? And I think that's part of the reason you like the loyalty part there too, where people forget after that first purchase, and it's not just about the first purchase getting to the next one, or even getting new people to make that first purchase. Reviews are super important. I'm glad you called that out, and I know you mentioned videos here too.
Yeah. So these videos are user generated. These are people that have used the product. They like the product, and they're using this to as influencers to say what the product actually is. It gives
Yeah,
you a genuine feel of what the product is for the end user. This is free. Also, these you can utilize influencers to put towards their own storefront page, or
yeah,
some of them just do this obviously just to generate their awareness and buzz for the overall brand. And it provides a quick and efficient way to get an understanding of the brand instead of the end user looking through 40 different reviews with 40 different opinions. You're showing your hallmark customer who likes the
yeah.
product is showing off what the product looks like in like real life and lifestyle, and it will lead to more conversions just simply by having something that is quick and easy and readily available to watch.
Yeah, and don't sleep on videos, right? Because anybody can upload a video. Like any consumer can upload a video. Your competitors can also upload videos and do comparison videos between your product and the other. And so if you're sleeping on that, your competitors are going to start creeping in here, especially ones that have a strong content strategy, the ones that understand the impact that content has on profit. You don't sleep on videos. Make sure you either upload your own or get work with your customers, talk to your customers, and work with influencers to get them to actually throw up some videos there and seeing how that actually plays out. And this is one. I know this is one of your clients here too, but you got some Versace videos that have been produced, and also one of the influencers there as well.
Yeah.
And so and that's not even it. I think there's like 8 videos on here, right?
Yeah, it's a key part of the strategy. Like especially for a brand like this, going on Amazon is a different journey for this particular end user than going into like Sephora, for example, where you get to try the product, you get to see how this applies against your skin. This gives you a similar feel of
Yeah.
what you are going to expect, and it makes the decision a lot easier. Whereas someone trying to go through the PDP and figure out, is this going to be good for my skin? Can I put this on my actual body? Makes it an easier decision than what it would be comparatively.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned it earlier, you kind of called it out here as well, but connecting your content to what your users are thinking about and what their pain points are, so it makes it easier for them to call out. The same way we looked at gamer, we looked at student, we looked at I think it was athlete there as well for the supplement there. value-driven imagery is super valuable. Is super valuable, obviously.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. But in looking at some of these images here, it's exactly what you just said, right? That there's even telling me there's 3 that come in a pack, right? Looking at the USDA tag on there as well, because it is certified in that capacity, and getting people to see that right off the hop through one image, it's a lot more information there. Whereas the previous one, I have to assume some of these things or try to go and find some of them. But even the cutout where you can't even read all powder, you can't even read the whole word there, and what it actually is, and you're making them work, right? And you're making your customer work for it versus attaining their pain point.
Yeah, it addresses any thoughts and ideas that they would have had. They're quick call outs that if I know that I'm an end user, I'm looking for a powder that's actually certified and healthy for me. I know this now with these 3 call outs, I can make this purchase now. Whereas before, I would have to dig into the description and figure that out. And by then, you've already on the PDP have seen 4 or 5 things that you've been retargeted towards that can be lower in price, similar in product, and you've already jumped somebody else, and now you've wasted a click.
Yeah, and same thing here as well, right? And you've go ahead. Sorry, yeah.
So on the hero images, and I think the general consensus is let's just put a front-facing image of our white backdrop and let it play. What you don't realize when people are typing those keywords, they see 50 items that look the exact same. Yeah. What every single person, if you take away from this, needs to do is there's things that you can add within that white backdrop that will differentiate yourself amongst all of your competitors. By simply adding oranges or simply adding a splashback, it immediately draws the attention of the overall user. And now you have an image that is unique comparative to the 50 items that are targeting that particular keyword.
And that's the interesting part. Even this is more accurate, right? Like if I look at the image on the right here, I presume that there are those packets inside the overall package as well, right? Like it makes it a lot more clear for me as to how my utilization of the product would be. I obviously prefer ones like this when I'm shopping for myself, entirely because I don't want to scoop something. I just want to open, put it in, and shake, right? So little things like that solve for customer pain points, but also just way more visually intriguing, capturing attention and hitting me with all the value props off the hop. It gets you that buy now versus the add to cart. Yeah. And so moving into it, I know you said this, that you can't just set it. You gotta keep testing things. What kind of frequency are we looking at here?
So my team is very diligent, very, very dedicated to what they do. So we're testing stuff on a near weekly basis. But if you could do if you're a salon, you could do 1 experiment a month. Let's experiment the hero image for 2 weeks. You can see if I added those oranges, what's our click-through rate? Is our click-through rate a lot better? If our click-through rate is better, and our conversion is better, let's keep this actual image. If our click-through rate is good now with that particular hero image, but our conversion is bad, that means that there's certain callouts that we're not presenting within the other impact images that need to be addressed. And that's where you move on to the next piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And you can track all of that with your profit per session, because that is the quantifier that allows you to know I'm in the right direction. Let me keep adding towards this piece of the puzzle and continue to improve upon things over and over again and continually tinkering. Amazon is a skill set that has to be worked towards, and it's a legitimate business now where 5-6 years ago you have your banked keywords, you have your image set that you've probably gotten from manufacturer, and you can really generate sales. You need to be able to identify what's your differentiator compared to any other brand itself or reseller, and address that through experimenting, because those resellers cannot keep up with the things that you're changing with your brand.
So if I understand this correctly, you're telling me that the brands that you work with, and brands need to be doing this, is a testing weekly. Like you're making changes all the time, seeing how it impacts the overall profit through profit per session there you mentioned as well. That like you're seeing how these things move the needle and get them to that profitable growth. That's a lot of work. Like what about it feels very daunting. Is it actually that hard to do?
It's work. I think how I conceptualize it, I look at it as like going to the gym. A bodybuilder is, even if they've gotten to a point where they've lifted as much as they think they can or won competitions, you're going back to the gym to get 1% better every single day, and
Yeah,
that 1% compounds upon each other, and that goes back to tinkering and practicing what you're doing. You can't just leave
yeah,
your
yeah.
brand to be subjected towards the end user and not expecting them to react to your product the same way every single day, every year for the end of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say that with price all the time. I say that even like when I went, I think on the last one we did, where it's like you got to change your price, right? But it seems like you got to keep changing your content as well. Like that's a big learning there, where it's you, if you're not doing that, you won't be actually improving, and you won't actually be driving or leveraging the ability your content has to drive profit. And so that rings true, man. It resonates really hard for me there as well, and hopefully for brands too, right? For that matter, where it's like if you're not changing your content, you're leaving money on the table. You can see the direct correlation with price. You can see that direct correlation with advertising. You may not see it with content, but you'll see the inverse when you actually start doing it, right? It's when you actually start making these changes, running these tests, seeing that impact that you have on your profit per session, seeing your profit change is really where you'll start being able to see what you weren't doing before. And the risk isn't really that big, right? Like there is an impact that it could go down or things could move in the opposite direction, but then you just go back to what you had before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Like every experiment you're going to isn't necessarily going to work, but if you have gone through 5 or 6 and you have identified one thing that increases your conversion on one particular image set by
yeah,
1%, imagine if you did that for all 7 images that you have and then added them
yeah,
in. Things like that just
yeah, yeah.
dramatically increase your business and your potential to earn more revenue.
That is some sound advice, some sage advice. And so I know you've said this before, but
Yeah, I think the biggest thing just to take away is that like the set it and forget it era is dead. It doesn't matter how much market share that you have currently. I'm sure across the board, everyone has seen. I've seen it across some of my clients. Is
yeah,
your market share is continuing to trickle down every single year, and some people just attribute it to the market has changed. I can't expect to keep that market share, but there is a
yeah.
way for you to fight back. There's a way for you to actually optimize and improve upon your business and get back to where you need to be. And that is by addressing the branding and addressing the content that gives people a reason to convert. And that conversion will lead to more profit.
Uh, could have said it better, man. Change your content. Fundamentally, change your
Yeah.
content, test new content, keep updating it, keep driving it. At the end of the day, if you want to drive profit, it's not going to be through advertising exclusively. It's going to be inclusively of content, and don't forget about it. Keep going with it. Trayvon, that is some sage advice. Thank you for the info. Appreciate the time. We got. I'm going to leave some time open for Q&A here. If anyone has any, I'll give it a good 30 seconds. But Trayvon, this is some solid advice, man. I think some solid wisdom over the years, and I know you've done this for I don't know how many brands at this point, hundreds, thousands.
Yeah. Quite a bit. I don't want to age myself. I don't want to be an old man, but
With that
yeah,
complexion, you don't look old. You don't look old.
but we have a dedicated team that works together to push everything across the 4 Ps. We partner with Trellis because with the guidelines of creating content and pricing and advertising, you're getting a full circle and a full scale that replaces the team of hundreds of people that you would have already had on your brand.
Yeah, and that's essentially it, right? Like we talk about this as well, human intuition, AI precision. You have the right people who have honed that skill. You have the right technology and the right solution towards automating and driving the execution of those strategies from the people that have those skills as well. And so we're big believers of this. We're grateful to be partners with Sequence Commerce as well, and Trevon and his team who believe this to be true as well, right? At the end of the day, if you want your teams, you want the people working on your brand to all be thinking about how do I drive more profit? How do we make more money? How do we stand out amongst the competition? How do we ward away any competitors? Change your content, change your price, find that optimization across all 4 Ps. We got a question over here. coming up. All right, Alfred, do you recommend TikTok advertisements for new brands, or is that better suited once you are more established as a brand? All right, we're going right into TikTok. It's a topic of conversation for people. Maybe that's the next one we do together, Trayvon. But talk to me. What do you think on this? TikTok advertisements for new brands, or do you think that you should focus on that once you've established your reputation on TikTok?
I think it's great for both brands. I think the hardest thing to address for any brand is, how do I get people to see my product? How do they know what it's about? The easiest way for them to figure that out is UGC. All it takes is one video to generate buzz and awareness. And once you have people within that funnel, they now understand your branding story, and then you can dictate where they're making purchases, whether that's on TikTok Shop, other platforms, or even your own website.
Yeah, it's super interesting. TikTok's pretty much like a bit of a blue sky, blue ocean. There's an idiom that makes sense to be utilized in this context, but it's kind of that first mover right now, right? Where Amazon was earlier on 7-8 years ago. A lot of people are coming on there. A lot of people are seeing success with it. Whether you're a new brand or an established brand, the shoppers do exist there, and they shop through content, right? And they shop through that. So having the right content, and then leveraging advertising dollars towards it, a new brand or established brand, at the end of the day, push some content, get people to drive and create that content. You can see some good value there. And so I'd go with yes for both either way. There's a lot of space on TikTok right now, in my opinion. Okay, we got another question here. Coming in hot, LinkedIn user. That's fantastic. You know, a little anonymous profile here too. Do you have a process to figuring out what to test? Do you have a checklist, look at specific feedback, etc.? Talk to us about your system, Trayvon. Talk to us about your process.
I can't give away all the sauce, but yes, there's a science about it. I think the way a quick takeaway to look at is, look at your competitors, look at the key things and differentiator points that they're using. Add that within your actual listing within itself, and then from there you can identify your click-through rate. Because if you're doing the same things that your click-through rate, doing the same things that people are generating a lot of click-through, you know now that I've done the baseline. What are the other things that I now can add to improve your overall listing?
Yeah, I think that's it, right? Like if we look at the process towards there, let's go with what the path towards. I know it's a secret sauce. I'm going to poke you a little bit more though here, Trayvon. Where do I start, right? Like click-through rates first, see where my click-through rate is, and then what's my next step? Okay, my click-through rate isn't very good.
Yeah.
Right. So what's my first step? What's the first thing that I should do?
So the first thing that you can do is, within that hero image, with your click-through rate, let's add 2 or 3 things. Like the one image that we showed, let's show them what's inside of the actual box. Let's show them some of the, if it's a flavor or it's a key, the color, what can we show that that the customer can expect? And once you achieve that, within your impact images, you want to have the appropriate call outs. So whether the quantity of size that you're getting, the health benefits that you're getting along those images as well. And then ideally, I suggest everyone to have a quick video, especially if it's a consumable, showing what that's going to be look like in application. Because the hardest thing for a consumer who isn't getting that instant gratification from being in a store is it going to taste good? Is it going to look good on my skin? And you address all of those pain points immediately.
Yeah. And that's a really good solid first step, right? Get your 7 images right, get your hero image right, get your headline right, start testing there and move further down kind of your PDP. There's some easy wins there to be able to go after, but sufficiently as we look at it here, specific feedback that I might be able to give here and support you on and help you answer this too. At the end of the day, Trayvon said it best. What is your click-through rate? What's your conversion rate? How much profit are you generating per session? And then going and saying, okay, well, if this is my baseline, how can I improve? Start at the top of the listing, work your way down to the bottom, value-based, drive reviews, focus on that as well. Get people to actually increase that. If you don't have over 100 reviews, you should probably start thinking about that. Get to 100, then focus on the next goal. I like to say the next goal is 1,000. Right. And at the same time, product market fit is shown by that too, right? You're launching a new product on Amazon. Your reviews are poor. Okay, well, people don't like your product. Let's reevaluate, start fresh, go back again. So reviews are going to be super important too.
Agreed.
We are well over the 30 minutes that I promised people that we would take. Thank you for the questions. If you have any other questions or any other thoughts, if you want to ask us anything that you weren't able to ask here, if you want to know more about how content drives your profit, I've put both of our email addresses here. We're always happy to talk to you about it. It's always something that we find to be important. Both of us believe that both of us love profit, and we know that brands do too. So we're always here to help and always help to give you information about how to keep driving profit. That being said, Trevon, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your wisdom. Appreciate all the experience that you have in terms of testing content, driving content or leveraging content to drive to profit. We'll get you on again for a couple of the other ones we talked about throughout here.
No, thank you. It's great to be with your illustrious webinar. Finally in the Cool Kids Club. So
yeah.
thank you for having me.
Of course.